I love that. Yes, she's an artist. Okay. So we're here because we don't like giving too many forks about things. AKA overthinking, but it's really a lot more fun to say fork or the other word. The way that this workshop is gonna be set up is we'll start with a few questions to kind of warm you up, get you thinking about things. Then I will present like the information portion and then walk you through. During that, I'll be asking you questions. Hopefully during that period, you're gonna take away, my intention is hopefully for you to take away one of the forks that you have all the time on your mind and like help you get rid of that today. But if you just want to walk away with a feeling something, that's great too. Or if you have a different intention, that's also great. And then at the end of it, we'll go over. I'm full disclosure because I don't like the aha at the end. I am promoting a 10-week course at the end of this live virtual, but it's really short. And then if you want to give a review, that'll be there too. So that's how it'll work today. If you want to take a minute and think about what you want to leave here with, write it down if you want, or just think about it in your head. Anna has had the 10-week course, though. Thank you, Anna. And I'm going to admit one more person. Let's see. Oh, there we go. If you guys have worked with me at all, you know that you're going to start by acknowledging something that's gone well lately, or as some people prefer, what has not sucked. What has not sucked lately? This is part of executive function training. So if we get used to looking for what's good, especially at night before we go to bed, then it retrains us to focus on good stuff. It retrains a certain part of your brain. I'm not going to get all sciencey on that. It's different than gratitude, but just as necessary as a gratitude. So that's our next thing. What are you grateful for today? Could be grateful for the win that you had. Grateful I didn't slap my preteen this morning because that would have been real bad. You know, we'll take big and small wins.
That one.
Or your boss, or your
I have not hurt my boss lately. No, my win is that I have been writing them down lately. And I had an epiphany last night, which was that I'm like, oh, I've been like doing the things that are needed to get this spiritual direction practice off the ground, which feels like a massive win. And I'm like, oh, that's been a thing that hasn't sucked lately, and it's been fun. So
yeah, because
I'm like, oh
you
yeah,
have a full-time draining day job, just a little
yes,
background. So it's hard to do the extra stuff. I did want to say hi to Katie because she came in late. Hi, Katie. I did acknowledge you. We're going through some primer questions and we're going to have education and we'll have some aha stuff at the end. So anybody else want to talk about their wins or what they're grateful for? Okay. Keep it to yourself. It's fine. What thought tripped you up in the previous two questions, if any? Did you notice some resistance?
Questioning.
What has gone well for you? What's a win? And what are you grateful for?
I guess both, really.
Both of them tripped you up?
Yeah, because like I don't like I've had a lot of wins lately. Now I've thought about them in the moment, but like reeling back to it, I don't remember.
So if you think of a win or what you're grateful for, but you're not giving us the win here, is there a thought that's keeping you from doing that? And you don't have to share. That's part of this workshop, is just kind of like acknowledging resistance. You don't have to have an answer, just trying to make you think before we get started, since it is a workshop. But if anyone has something that they wanted to share but didn't, and they want to talk about why they didn't, thinking is hard. Well, what I experience with a lot of clients when you ask this is that they'll have a win, but they're like, no, it's not a very good one, or it's not big, or it's not a big deal. Hannah did this morning in coffee. It's not really that big of a deal. It was a big deal. It's probably one of the bigger wins. She held a boundary. But also it just took a minute. I was like, so have you held a boundary? Have you like managed your expectations? Have you done this? Have you done that? And those are wins that we don't acknowledge those a lot of times, or we don't think they're worth saying. But it's important to say them or write them. But that overthinking is what gets us caught up. Why does it matter if it's not big enough? And how do you know? Did you throw out or ignore any initial answers? That's kind of what I'm saying. Did you throw anything out because it wasn't good enough? And why? If there was an inner dialogue about your answers, what did that sound like? Thinking is hard. And I feel like we're kind of running through these pretty quickly. So if I need to slow down, you guys let me know.
Do we need to be responding to your questions, or are we just listening?
You can. I'm thinking like respond in your own notes if you want, or if you want to raise your hand and share, that's absolutely. We love examples. And you're biting your nails. So like what's going on there?
I don't know. I'm not biting my nails.
Oh, okay.
I'm a skin like picker.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's not nerves. That's not nerves. That's just
things.
a fidget. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot to start with breathing. So if you guys tend to forget to breathe, because I do, maybe good reminder. Used to struggle, but oh, Rebecca says, I used to struggle, but I freaking celebrate brushing my teeth now. But I do have a hard time coming up with something on the spot. And these questions might be good to take home with you when you're trying to think about your own wins, or if you do it with someone. So it's not so on the spot, and like kind of tracking that thought process. Has overthinking cost you anything?
Mental health.
I have a long list. What'd you say? Ooh, a client sale, mental health.
I would say everything. Because like I'll have an idea and I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do, or that's what I want to be, and I get excited about it, and then I start doing it, and then I give up and I shut down. Like, because I'm like, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I can't figure this out. Maybe I can't. Like, so really, I'm 36. So, like, just trying to figure out, like, a career and things like that. Like, I've started college a couple of times, never gotten past a first year. that has to do with learning disabilities as well. But like, yeah, it's cost me everything.
Yeah. It's cost me my health. I know someone else in this group, at least 2 other people in this group can say that as well.
Mhm.
I've listed here time, energy, money, rest, sleep, health, wealth, confidence, patience, relationships. This is just a short list. That's why we're here today. Because if I can do anything, it's wanting to, people ask me, what do you do? And I told on Shelby's podcast, I said, well, in short, I help people get rid of their forks. We'll keep it PC. That's what I hope to help people do. So today, education-wise, we're gonna go through what needs, values, expectations, and boundaries have to do with the overthinking loop. And then I'll give you 3 steps to fewer forks. And in this process, we'll find one of your biggest ones and help you figure out how to get over it or get rid of it or think through it or feel through it or whatever you need to do to help you not lose anymore due to overthinking. You may have questions or want to say anything. Okay. What roles do needs and values and expectations and boundaries play in the overthinking loop? Just said that. Thanks for the slide. What is an example of a need? Anybody want to tell me an example of a need? I'm thinking back to psychology in high school or college here.
Food, shelter.
Sleep is a need. I don't think that's on the list of Maslow's hierarchy, but it definitely is.
Could be what? Food,
Water.
shelter.
Yeah. Food, water, shelter, safety, security. Right? Those are some of the base needs. Those are examples of needs. So a need is a fundamental requirement for survival, health, and well-being. So sleep is definitely a need that we ignore a lot. A need is unlike a temporary want, preference, or unmet. An unmet need causes clear adverse outcomes, such as a physical harm, emotional distress, or social dysfunction. So like it makes you unwell. What's an example of a value? Questions are getting harder. Has anybody gone through values exercises? They know they're taught values. Do you want me to give an example before I define it? My number one value is honesty. It has cost me a lot. Because it gets in the way sometimes, which is what we'll talk about.
Are you
A
talking
value. Go
Are
ahead.
you talking about like just being super honest and being very blunt? And it's like,
Sometimes
I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm just like being honest.
sometimes, but it can cause conflicts too, just between. So I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I'll tell you
Okay.
kind of where that fits in. But a value, as in, there's a lot of ways to describe a value, but today, we're talking about a core belief or standard that guides how a person thinks, feels, and acts. If you've done a values exercise, sometimes people want to talk about the values they want to have. So like, I've not, in my previous life, I wasn't big into family, but I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to make my family my priority. I wanted that to be a value, but it's not how I acted every day. Values guide your behavior, much like needs do. And they help people choose their goals, judge right from wrong, decide what is worth their time and effort. This is a loop. So values and needs are in the beginning of the loop, and your expectations and your boundaries are what triggers a conflict that causes the overthinking. And so, does anyone want to tell me a difference between an expectation and a boundary?
For some reason, the first thing I think of is like an expectation as like a positive, but then like a boundary as a negative. Like I know that kind of may sound like weird, but it's like expectation would be like, I expect my employee to do this, this, and this today. But then there's a boundary there where it's like, but she's, I don't know, not going to do this. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. That was like the first thing that came to my mind.
You're onto something there. My favorite example is I expect, and I have voiced these expectations, that my family will not just surprise visit me. I can't control whether they do that or not. I can inform them. I can make sure they understand my expectation and that that's not good. If they show up anyway unannounced, the boundary is I don't got to open the door. It's my space, internal. But what happens is we think, oh, they're here. It's so rude to not open the door. But I don't want to open the door because that's my boundary. That's what, like, I'm in charge of that. That protects me. That protects my space. But then you overthink it, and then you let them cross over the boundary. So a good way to think about it too is an unreal expectation, for example, perfectionism or mind reading by others. You'll spend hours analyzing why things didn't go the way you expected. Your expectation is the trigger there. A poor boundary is where you don't really know where you end and the other person begins. I don't know where I end and you begin, so I try to control your emotions by overthinking a phrase or a text or control to your reaction, to control your reaction. So I don't want to open the door, but I do it. I put my boundary down because I'm trying to control how they feel about my reaction. Does that make sense? So expectations are external, boundaries are internal. Is a good way to think it. Bound up inside of you. It's a good way to think about it. What does all of this have to do with overthinking? I already gave you the answer. Needs and values precede expectations, and boundaries in the overthinking loop. So they're triggers, and I already explained this, so maybe they were in the right place. Think of it like an alarm system. Your needs and values are the things the alarm is designed to protect. Your expectations and boundaries are tripwires. The needs and values are the why we overthink. The expectations and boundaries are the when. This is an example of the overthinking loop in action. You agonize over sending an email, telling your boss you cannot work over the weekend. This was real common for me when I was in corporate America. The trigger. You have a hard time saying no. You have a weak boundary. The conflict. You think good employers are always available. Good employees are always available. What is that? What's that an example of?
I honestly had to tell Maddie to stop texting me back on the weekend. So like I'm really bad about like when things come to my head, I'm like, oh, I've got to like make sure I let her know. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm very conscious of only putting it on Slack because I told her, do not put Slack on your phone, only put Slack on your computer. So that way when you're ready to work, you can intentionally like go in and work and see it. So that way, because I'm working a lot more than what any of my employees do. And so I want to make sure that they know they're not expected to return a text or whatever, unless it's an absolute emergency.
So yeah, her expectation is that she should always be available. And she also like put that expectation on you before you gave her a different expectation.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, by the way, because I don't think a lot of bosses pick up on that or like think that that's a big deal. I mean, I could be wrong. I think good bosses do. So the core driver, you value competence. This is you as a worker. You value competence and have a deep need for financial security and approval. So what do? You overthink the email for 3 hours because your brain is terrified that setting a boundary will violate your expectation of yourself and others, usually, which will threaten your core need for security. What's happening here? Your need for security and safety is at odds with what you're allowing to happen, which causes you to overthink as a solution to the conflict. Any questions? Is anything like, are there any ahas popping off here?
I mean, I would say like when it comes to like my clients and stuff, when I'm communicating with them and they want to communicate with me outside of the boundaries that I've already placed as well, could be like the employer-employee situation. I always feel as if I need to be there when they need me versus when I am allowing them to be, like communicate with me or reach out to me because I'm afraid that they're just going to fire me. Like, oh, she didn't text me back on a Sunday when they all know they need to go to the app to communicate, So it's all, I like that it's tied to financial security because that makes more sense to me. I'm not necessarily afraid to lose them as a client. I'm afraid to lose that monthly payment they pay me every month.
Security and safety is financial for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I would challenge that thought by saying, well, I don't think that way. Like you just gave the example of you with your employee. Like I'm just getting this ball out of my court. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that's all they're doing, So 3 steps to fewer forks. We're going to talk about awareness, how to ask why, and then discuss mapping your needs and values and how important that can be. This is where I want you to think about. So we're going to leave some time to think about what are 2 or 3 things you overthink a lot that like you spend a lot of time on in your day. Take a minute and think about it. I have some examples if you need them.
I think a lot about when is my next referral coming in? How am I going to get more business? What am I not doing? Over and over and over and over and over.
I like that. What am I not doing? I'm the same way. I'm like, what have I missed? Who have I not contacted back? What could I be doing better?
Those all seem, and this is a whole different topic, but all of those questions are super vague.
Welcome to my world.
So that triggers the certainty, like the distance between that question and the answer is the uncertainty, and that's where the overthinking is. So if you can find ways to give that some definitive value, like, Shelby, I know you got a list because you have a CRM.
Yeah.
Hannah, I know you have a list because you've shown us how you do your sales, right? I know you have processes too because you've shared them. But we don't.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Huh?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right. No. I'm not saying I overthink a lot of things too, right? And I have those same questions like, oh, so that's why I try to define what I'm doing every day and get as simple as If I wake up tomorrow and I'm having a day where my brain is not wanting to do things, what is the first thing I need to do? As simple as opening my computer. As simple as opening a piece of software that I need to do the thing, not the overwhelming, I need to get more clients. So I'll give some more examples that are super common that we probably don't think about. We were on the note of like financial securities. And I think that's what brought up those overthinking areas, but replaying past interactions. Why did I say that in that meeting? Predicting future catastrophes. What if I can't finish this project on time? What if I can't close this client on time? Analyzing other people's behavior. They replied with, okay, are they mad at me? No, they're freaking busy. But like, sometimes when you're in this mode, all these things come up. So that's where step 2 comes in. Ask why 5 times or until you can dislodge the fork. So what am I overthinking? That's what I asked you a minute ago to think about. So what did you say, Hannah? What you overthink?
Just like how I can do better. What am I missing?
So why are you asking that question?
Because I want to make as much money as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the best.
Right. What if you are missing something?
Then I need to know what it is, so I can do it.
But if you miss something, what does that mean? We're in what right now? I'm trying to get
The loop.
Yeah, the loop. So the example I have here is why I'm overthinking. And back to this example, I sent an email with a small mistake. Why does that bother me? Because my team might think I'm careless. So in your instance, if I miss something, why does that bother you? Well, money. So maybe you skipped a few Y's and you're right down to the need, right? So that's pretty easy. In the next step, it says why. So my team might think I'm careless. Why is that bad? Well, if they think I'm careless, they won't trust me with big projects. Why is that bad? If I don't get big projects, I won't get promoted. Why is that terrifying me? Because then I'm failing at my career. What core fear or desire is exposed? Financial security. So you just skipped a bunch of steps, right? Like you're like, I need that money. If I'm missing something, I won't get money. If I'm missing something, they're going to think I'm not a good agent or, marketer or fill in the blank. And then they're going to leave me, like Shelby said. So how do we combat that? It's important to know where we're getting stuck, where the overthinking begins, so we can face it head on. I would say if you're worried about financial security, you probably have a lot of examples where you have done things right, where you haven't missed something. Having those handy, but like mapping your needs and your values and character strengths are another way of saying values too. Just to reveal common clashes and create action plans. So you're not just like stuck in this rumination. A lot of times these fears go unacknowledged. So you can't actually talk to them. You can't say, I'm fine. And I have all these great examples of not having missed something because you're stuck in the loop. So if you know what your needs and your values are, you can address them head on and create an action plan for when this happens. So if your overthinking is driven by a need, your brain is usually trying to protect you from an uncomfortable emotion, rejection, uncertainty, exposure. It brings up anxiety and fear. If your overthinking is driven by a value, your brain is reacting to an internal conflict where you feel you aren't living up to your own standard or standard of who you want to be. Guilt, regret, and resentment is what that brings up. So back to me saying my value of honesty. I'll give you my personal example. This happened to me last year. To answer Katie's question, yes, I can be very blunt because I'm honest. But in this circumstance, I had someone who was telling everyone, "Oh, we're best friends," and I give that like high level status, right? Good friend, yes, that's perfect. That's great. And I didn't really know why it bothered me because, like, big deal. So she's saying I'm her best friend. And then I was in my coaching session for like the fourth time we talked about this. Like, it was just gnawing at me. Like, I couldn't understand. And all this time it was creating this gap in my friendship because I wasn't addressing it. I didn't know why it bothered me so long or so much. And I wasn't addressing it because I didn't want to hurt her feelings because I needed her as a friend. I wanted that friendship. That's a need, is like having connections. And so finally got to it in my coaching session. My coach said, "Do you think it has something to do with your value of honesty? Because you keep talking about how she's saying it to all these people." I said, "Oh my God, my brain thinks I'm a liar because she's saying it and it's untrue. So there's a conflict. It shouldn't be a big deal, right? But I was stuck on it. Unfortunately, by the time I realized that and I faced that values conflict and was able to kind of just work through it and be like, oh, I get it. Like, it's okay though. That's her thought, right? It doesn't have to be mine, so it doesn't make me a liar. I was able to talk through that, but it was kind of too late after that. I'd already caused this gap in our friendship by pushing her away because I felt like a liar. So finding these takes time. This is not necessarily something you can do today. Oh, Anna, go ahead.
When you find these conflicts, the root of your overthinking, I feel like it takes a while still for me to get to the bottom of it. Of like, oh, this is the core of this problem, or this is why I am feeling this way, or this is why I'm ruminating on this. How do you, like, what is the thought process or the questions that you ask yourself to get there faster?
What happens if it's true? That's one of my favorite ones. This thing that I found, I found the fear. So the fear, for example, mine, if I lose the friendship, which I ended up kind of doing anyway, right? So like, what is that going to mean?
Okay.
Like, put yourself in it, get as deep as you can, and just face that feeling head on, because that's what that was, right? I didn't want that feeling of loss, which I ended up getting anyway, right?
Gotcha. Okay. That's helpful.
So just
what if it's
say,
true?
so what if it's true? What if that does happen? Once you figure out what it is that's at the bottom of the overthinking, the need and the value, and if there's a conflict. Sometimes you have two values conflicting. So it's a little harder in that case because you're not really looking at a need. I think needs are a lot easier to resolve because you're like, oh, I have all this proof that I have all these connections and we have a good friendship, and the proof in that situation was I'm going to lose it either way, but I figured that out way too late. Right. So like I either address it and don't lose the friendship, or I don't address it and I for sure lose the friendship because of my behavior.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. So because this is a longer process, that's part of this whole, everyone's like, oh, is it a free workshop? It is a free workshop, but also we have Resilient Rebels starting in a month and a half, almost. And it's a 10-week program. It used to be 16, so you guys are lucking out if you apply to do it. And you can scan the top barcode to learn more about the program and what specifically we address, but we do address needs and values and boundaries and expectations, and we get in a little bit deeper and work through that. And I'm running an early bird special right now. It's $70 a week, but I bill it monthly. And if you do early bird, you can do 4 payments of $175 versus $233, and you get a free private session, which is nearly $200. So, and I have links. I'll put them in the chat. That way, if you don't want to scan, if you're not one of the people that likes QR codes, do that real quick. And if you want to share it with somebody you know, you can do that too. And if they want to talk to me, they want to build trust, can just have them contact me, text me, email me. And I did not get that ready to put in the chat, but I think most of you have my contact information because you're here today. Does anyone need me to go back to that slide? Thank you for being here. If again, this is free, but if you do feel like you want to give back, you can always leave a Google review or fill out this form if you are not logged into Google, and that's pain in the butt because that happens. And does anyone want to share what work they're getting rid of after today? What they're going to go home and work on?
Mine's going to be a work in progress. Okay. I don't think it's something I can do overnight because I've been given too many forks for way too long.
Right. I was not under any illusion that this would solve definitively today the overthinking problem, but I'm hopeful that it has given you a structure or some scaffolding to figure out what's going on so you can address it. And if not, maybe you can do Resilient Rebels and you'll get a lot more than that.
Thank you, Leah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.